Welcome to Viewscapes, stories from Washington State Magazine, connecting you to Washington State University, the state, and the world. Hi, I'm Larry Clark, editor of the magazine. In this episode, we'll hear rowing stories from a Cougar Crew coach and a rower as the team celebrates over 50 years on the river. We'll also listen and relax to an innovative audio sculpture on the Pullman campus created by Seattle artist Trimpin. And we'll chat with engineering professor Noel Schulz about encouraging and supporting girls and women in science and engineering fields.
When I started here, I was 24. I was bigger than they were, and just about a year older than they were. And so I think they just accepted the fact that this guy has the title of coach, and so he knows what he's doing.
That's Ken Struckmeyer, the longest-serving coach in the history of Cougar Crew. The team recently celebrated its 50th anniversary. They had planned on a gala with rowing on the Snake River, a banquet and auction at Beasley Coliseum, tours of the boathouse, and more. Because of the persisting COVID-19 pandemic, those plans have been put on hold. But Cougar Crew has quite a history. I'm Adriana Janovich, Associate Editor at Washington State Magazine. Along with Ken, I'm here with Doug Engle, who rowed for Cougar Crew from 1975 to 1979.
My rowing experience, I just think about the intense camaraderie of the team. It was just you're in a situation where you have to work really well with others in a very physically challenging environment. I call it's a leg and lung sport. It's how strong your legs are and how much oxygen you can process through your lungs. Those are the guys who are going to win the race. So it's just that intense camaraderie. You're in the cars together. You're talking. It was almost kind of like a party after a really hard workout, because our workouts lasted it was about 2 hours or so. Just really intense, and so you're filled with all these endorphins coming off the water.
But first, they had to get to the water. Boyer Park, where the old boathouse was, lies some 26 miles from campus, and the team didn't have a bus.
Back in those days, I had a big Bel Air, so I could get 6 or 7 or 8 kids into my car to get down to the river for practice. For the first 20 years, everybody drove down in their private cars, and sometimes we gave them money for gas, and sometimes we didn't. And that was the other advantage I had, is I had a job, so I could always put my own gas in my own car.
The most vivid practices I can remember, it was a Saturday morning. We were rowing downstream. We weren't rowing all that well as a team, and I just remember being as far downriver as I can remember ever being. And coach is pissed at us. He says, "Okay, one more 2,000-meter piece, and we're going downstream." Everybody's just dog tired. We got blisters forming on our hands. But you turn around, and you've got to go back upstream against the current. You kind of realize something is that the best way to row is the most efficient way to row. And, when you actually join everybody's bodies together and get that swing moving, everything gets easier.
Unless, of course, you manage to catch a crab. Basically, if you don't put your oar in the water in exactly the right way, bad things can happen.
The boat's moving along. The oar is in the water pinned. The oar handle keeps moving. There's no way you're going to stop the oar handle. And if you're unlucky enough, what'll happen is it'll catch you under your armpit. And if you can't get out of the way, you're ejected out of the boat. That's a king crab.
Doug was a member of the infamous Meat Wagon, a 4 with a coxswain, and the first Cougar Crew boat to attend the national championships in Syracuse. The Meat Wagon made Cougar Crew history, winning their race at the national championships in 1979.
Oh, it was an unreal experience. A lot of it is because going into the race or going over there, we really didn't know how good we were. But in a lot of ways, we just didn't know how fast we were in relation to the rest of the country. Because, up here in the Northwest, it's kind of insulated.
It was even a surprise for Coach Struckmeyer.
So here's this monster boat of these behemoths coming out of the Northwest, rowing at 39 strokes a minute. Well, Syracuse and a couple of other boats said, well, if they're going to row at 39 for 2,000 meters, so are we. And so in the finals, they went out at 39, and at the 1,000-meter mark, they just kind of rolled over and died. And our guys are sitting there rowing along at 32, 33, 34, and just powered right through them. I think it was just a shock for all of us that we had actually won a national championship. It was a traveling trophy that had, Wisconsin, Washington, MIT, Cornell, Syracuse, all their names on it, and there was ours.
Winning at nationals was certainly a milestone, but when Doug remembers his time on the team, it's not the first thing that comes to mind.
And so you have this, for rowing, and the thing I always come back to, and I remember, to this day, it's just because it's just part of your body, is that intense feeling of linking with your other teammates in the boat. Because there's rowing, I classify it as one of these sports where you need the timing of a perfect golf swing while you're lifting weights. And, for most people that play golf, if you hit the perfect shot, there's something about it. It's just absolutely magic about it. Well, rowing is like that, but you're doing it with, either 3 or 7 other people, and you're doing it 36 times a minute. And when you get that point where all your bodies are absolutely linked together, from a momentum standpoint, one center of gravity for the entire boat moving back and forth in the seats, and the boat only weighs a couple hundred pounds, so you've got 1,500 pounds of people and 200 pounds of boat. That mass of people moving up and back is just a magic feeling when it's called swing, when you get it right, and it's just like you just never want to stop because all of a sudden the work gets easy.
Coach Struckmeyer knows what that's like. He rowed at the University of Wisconsin before coaching at WSU for 20 years, from 1972 to 1992, and says you don't just feel it when it goes right. You hear it, too.
When everybody's going well and those old wooden shells, you could hear water laughing. It was just a literal laughing, a gurgling coming out from the bottom of the shell.
Ambiente 432 is an innovative kinetic sound sculpture in the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art at WSU. The installation was created by Seattle-based artist, composer, and inventor Trimpin. It's played by visitors moving through and activating the space. The installation is tuned to 432 Hz, the vibration frequency known as Verdi's A. Composer Giuseppe Verdi favored the standard, which studies have shown helps calm anxiety, decreases heart rate and blood pressure, and generally has a soothing effect.
I think the placement of Trimpin's work in the pavilion is significant for a couple of reasons, because I often think that it's your second experience of the museum. Your first experience is hopefully the beautiful red, crimson cladding, glass cladding on the exterior. But once you enter the space and you're on the interior, that pavilion gallery is your first art experience. It really sets the tone for your visit to the museum. Hello, I'm Ryan Hardesty. I'm the curator of exhibitions and collection here at the Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art. I would say that the museum has a really long history with Trimpin and his work. We organized a major exhibition of his in our former space quite some time ago. When I came to work for this museum, there was already plans in place for the new Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art. It was on the horizon, and really it was, for me, kind of the reason I wanted to come and work here. And at that time, conversations were already underway with Trimpin. It was already kind of a foregone conclusion that we'd be working with him with this new building. And at that time, we were thinking about an outdoor work with Trimpin out in a courtyard as a first experience. As you kind of entered the museum, you kind of passed underneath some of his sound sculpture. We were able to provide some funds that really allows an artist like Trimpin to think big and out of the box, to kind of surprise us with something really substantial for this community, and that's just what he did. And for Trimpin on this project, there was just a lot of I think, design and innovation that was required for him to kind of work through all the different steps of what he wanted to create. So I really knew that I wanted something that's surprising, unexpected, that really pushes the boundaries of what art can be in the pavilion, and that's just what Trimpin's Ambient 432 is to me. It's not a static experience. It's an experience that I think empowers the visitor. In some ways, you're in charge. You're actually activating this work of art. Your presence in this space is going to affect your experience of the work, which isn't the traditional maybe experience of a framed work on the wall that sits a little more passively in an experience. Significant artworks really deserve to be seen and experienced more than one time. I think we build relationships with artworks over time, and it's my hope that this work becomes a community favorite, kind of an iconic work of our permanent collection now that we're able to restage, re-show from time to time, and that people will kind of have an experience with it that's built over time and that becomes more profound with further experience.
I think it's really important to have that diverse team as in engineering and STEM to make sure we're thinking about all the possible solutions.
That's Dr. Noel Schulz, a professor in the WSU School of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science. Noel joined the Voiland College of Engineering and Architecture when her husband, Kirk Schulz, became president of the university in 2016. She now serves as the Edmund O. Schweitzer III Chair in Power Apparatus and Systems. Not only is Noel a nationally recognized expert in power systems engineering, she's also dedicated to recruiting, retaining, and mentoring women in engineering. Her interest in the field began at a young age. Noel spoke with writer Brian Clark about her experiences.
My mom was an elementary education teacher, so education was obviously very important. And my dad was an engineer, and he worked in industry for 5 years when I was in elementary school. And then when I was in the third grade, I actually went and saw a manufacturing facility as part of his work. And I think that really had an impact on me in the third grade, that I thought, hey, this is really cool how they're manufacturing different products. And so at that point, I kind of had an interest in math and science and really enjoyed math and science. And so my dad was a Vietnam vet and got a Heathkit TV. And so when I was in middle school, I helped him solder some of those parts and actually had earrings that were made of resistors. And that was a neat little tidbit I had.
How would you encourage a girl? And it kind of stumps people, because I think we know that saying, you should do what you love is fine to a certain point, but it in a lot of ways it masks the reality that women will get pushed back against.
I really think you need a promotion partner, someone that can help encourage you, be there. I talk about networking so that when you have a down day, the sorrows are halved and the joys are doubled, and some of those kind of things. I think networks are really important for our women students, because to find out that they're not alone. A resume is a terrible thing because it shows all your successes, right? We don't put our failures. Yeah. So when you do an introduction for someone, you talk about all the great things they've done. Yeah. You don't talk about the jobs they didn't get, the papers or proposals that were rejected. And so a lot of times when you see a leader, and I'll use Kirk as an example, Kirk failed a class as an undergraduate, and he's president of a university. I've not had jobs. I've had interviews and not gotten jobs. I've had papers rejected. But students and others will look at this leader and say, wow, they've gone from A to B to C. They haven't run into any problems. And any leader you talk to, and I encourage our alumni when they're visiting to talk about a failure and how they got over it. And I think that's one of the most important things, is how we deal with failure is more important than success. Because how we deal with that failure, if we say, I didn't get that job, but the next time I'm going to be doubly ready for that, or, I'm going to be able, instead of running into that barrier and then turning around and going the other way, figuring out another way to get over that barrier, that's really important. I think that's particularly important for women in STEM, because they run into that first barrier, or they run into the people that aren't supportive of them, and they don't have a supportive network to say, I am good enough for this, and I'm going to show you.
No, I think that's a great point. Yeah, and in fact, I think that's a lot of what I've heard from people is, yes, we need to tell girls and young women, you can do this, and all of that kind of positive encouragement, but also just be more candid and, as you say, open. You put a problem in front of a group of male engineers and they want to solve that problem, whereas a group of female engineers might want to know, how's this going to make my community or the world a better place? And I wonder what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I think that's really important when we start talking about recruiting young girls to think about engineering and science STEM fields, is they want to see how can they make a difference. And that's why you might see them be interested in the medical fields, because it's very obvious how they make a difference. But what we don't talk enough about are the things we do as engineers in particular that are helping the world, whether it's clean water in different parts of the world, or whether it's electricity in different parts of the world, or using different machines to do agriculture.
I wonder if you have thoughts about the value of diversity in the workplace, or for problem solving, or for addressing some of the big giant global issues that we're wrangling right now.
To have the best team to solve a problem, you had to have diversity, because you would have someone that came from different socioeconomic, you would have different race, gender, experience bases, that really the most diverse team will come up with the most diverse set of solutions. The original test dummy was an average male, and they used that for the airbag, to design airbags on cars. Well, then small men and women were dying because the airbag was not designed for them. It was designed for an average male. And so then now there's a test dummy family. And that's the same thing. You need multiple perspectives to be able to come up with the best solution.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fantastic example. I love that, because one of the things that always worries me is the unintended consequences.
One of the things I find really interesting is for middle schoolers and high school women is they really struggle on whether they can have a career in engineering or STEM and also have a family. And they are interested in doing both. And I think if you ask 100 high schoolers, is your career choice partially about how you want to balance a family and a career? And probably 90 of them would raise their hand. If you had 900 men and you asked, is your career choice based on your family, they would say no. They're, maybe 10 of them might feel that way. But we've, in our society, it's where women have felt they had to make a choice sometimes, and they don't see engineering or computer science or STEM as a place they can do both. And that's one of the things where it's very important to have women's networks. Science and research has shown it's more important for women than men, but to really have informal networks as well as formal networks to help encourage women, to help talk to them about some of the challenges and getting through those challenges, and letting them know that those challenges they can get over them, and not to let them be a hindrance to their success in their careers.
Thanks for listening to Viewscapes, a monthly podcast from Washington State Magazine. Our theme music was written by Greg Yazanitsky. For more WSU stories, videos, and photos, visit magazine.wsu.edu.